All right, let's start. There's only really one topic for today, which is the compile Ceph stack. Got merged yesterday, so it's officially, I guess, in the source tree and can do stuff with it. Which is why today I wanted to go back over this other pad we made a while ago. Make sure that we still agree with sort of at least the next steps from here. And I guess plan a little bit what we want to do going forward. So if I'm looking at this correctly, the next thing we were going to do was the test coverage related to one of the pull request links John added to the main pad. Talk to anyone. I think the idea we were discussing was we are going to check the coverage of Ceph.py right now. This is the one file, and we're going to try to increase the coverage up to maybe like 80-ish%. I guess it depends. We'll have to see how it looks, I guess, as we get higher percentages. And then once we're there, then maybe we start breaking things up once we're confident that we can test to make sure that breaking it up hasn't ruined anything.
So on this one, and I'm willing to do this maybe today, I was thinking maybe we add PyTest coverage to that, and that'll give us like a coverage report where we'll know, what items are maybe possibly missing. And then when we have that list, perhaps we can go through that list and identify which things are critical that we really want tests around. And then try and meet that 80% milestone or whatever that might be. That sound?
Yeah, I think we're on the same wavelength. If you look at the PR I shared, it's a non-enabled test environment for talks that'll generate the coverage report. Feel free to suggest anything on the PR if you think it needs a tweak or two. But I was thinking we could kind of merge that. I had shared this one-on-one with Adam yesterday just to make sure that it mostly worked. And what did we see? I think currently we got 53%.
Yeah, 53.
Yeah, let's see. Same idea. Cool.
Go ahead.
Do we have a list of what's missing though? Like which routines or CLI commands?
I haven't gone through it formally. We sort of informally looked over it once yesterday. The coverage report showed, and a lot of it is like the classes for the services. Like say if there's like an NFS class in the binary, where all the stuff are there, where it sets like the files and does all that stuff. A lot of those aren't tested at all. Our list daemons isn't tested at all. Removing the cluster isn't testing at all, like ARM cluster, like that. So I haven't compiled the full list yet. I didn't like formally do it, but we could see, I guess, some of the big things that need testing. That is a lot of the service specific stuff that or like config stuff for those services, and then like some of the operations that are sort of hard to test in like an RM cluster list daemons that are missing mostly.
So the idea that just popped into my head is that maybe what we could do is add to a list right maybe in the Etherpad, like create a new subsection of like top level, like the class name or a top level function name that is lacking coverage. And then we can come back either in the stand up or the next weekly and kind of say divvy it up amongst like 3 or 4 people or 2 people or whatever. But you know what I'm getting at. That way it's not all just on one person's shoulders.
And I think the approach I had kind of followed with the unit testing, because it's kind of, which unit do we break it down to? I think I was kind of mostly walking down all of the CLI functions from the usage. And so I think I got partway through that. I did like a bunch of bootstrap tests and a few others. So
Bootstrap I think is a bit more than a lot of the other ones actually.
Yeah.
Doing better than most of them, I think.
So, but I can't remember where I left off. So that's another way we could generate a list. Perhaps it's just kind of those user-facing.
For reference right now, I'm going to share my screen because I happen to have the coverage report open anyway. I'll look at it some. That working? You guys.
It's great.
Yeah, so you see, like up here at the top, like all this stuff is good. I mentioned the NFS. Well, yes, some of this Podman stuff is missing as well. But I mentioned the NFS Ganesha as like the first thing that came up. Um, I guess this function 2 version is not tested at all. But like when we get down to here, like this class is like very lightly tested. Like pretty much this whole thing is red. So that's like an example. And I remember it when I think it was RM cluster was one of the big ones that RM daemon as well. But like all this stuff is untested. RM daemon, RM cluster is the same way. All the adoption stuff is not tested. Like this whole area down here is missing. A lot of that. And I remember list. I think this is list demons here. This was another one of the big ones that's really important, but it's not really tested at all outside of this very initial part. Basically, once you get down to the part where it actually starts looking into the directories, there's nothing for any of that either. That I'm missing. Yeah, but Bootstrap I think was actually doing relatively okay. A lot of this is like it's a lot of things that aren't are like things like this, like an error case or something, are
Error
missing. But
handling. Yeah.
yeah, but like a lot of this function is tested. It was actually fairly good. Um, yeah, kind of where we stand on this. Oh yeah, all the agent stuff's also untested. Another big one. This is all the agent stuff here.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm not sure exactly how we want to approach it, but I think what John said kind of makes sense, is that we sort of need to make the list of the big things that are missing, and then I guess start writing tests for those particular parts. So like the agent, list daemons is a big one, all the adoption stuff, RM cluster. Any of these like, if any of these whole command line functions that aren't tested at all, really need to get something.
Is it? So I haven't dug too deep into the code yet. I've looked at it before, but I'm no expert. Is it generally true that each command line maps to some top level function?
Yeah, that's like the way like the argument parsing at the bottom is set up, where they all
Right. Yeah, so
have.
I think the two approaches we suggested actually do kind of overlap. We can have a line that says, the name of the CLI command, but it's also equivalent to function, foobar.
Command
And
bootstrap
foobar
is
is what'll show up in the coverage. Yeah.
most of the
Does
parsing is
that make
actually all tested as well.
that
That makes
jive with
sense.
you, Mike?
Yeah, that was kind of the path I was following prior to this. So pretty much anything that has like a command under bar foo,
Hmm.
whatever that may be, those are top level functions. So,
Yeah.
and then
So
I think I oh sorry
okay.
I think I selectively because some of them are a little bit different, so I selectively choose different routines as they made sense that were outside of the commands, but generally the top level functions.
Yeah, there's a few SMIGs that I want to get tested that aren't those, specifically the agent stuff, and then there's some of the stuff related to our sub processes. That we test. I don't know how exactly we want to do the testing for that, but it feels like it's important enough that it probably should have something. And then on top and beyond that, I think it is mostly those functions that you guys are talking about that still need something. Yeah, I guess we sort of gonna have to have a list and sort of people take it. I don't know if I don't know if we want to wait until next week to start doing any of this, or if we maybe just like put it. Maybe if you want to work on one of them, we can just go put it into this other pad or into the FDM refactoring other pad, just like write down how there's this thing that needs testing, and then I'm going to do it. And then as long as you always check in here before you start working on it, we don't have to necessarily wait until next week.
I like that.
All right. Let me add a section to the, I guess it would be phase 1.
Yeah.
Put it in here. I'll just put in the start and stuff. ARM cluster, command ARM cluster. I guess if I like want to do that one, I can say like put my name next to one of these, and like I'm going to work on this one, just so we can coordinate a little bit without having to, meet up or anything.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else to say about that testing stuff? Do we need to go over more what we're going to do? I think we're all kind of on the same page.
So I guess the last thing was the percentage. I kind of pulled the number 80 yesterday out of a hat. I mean, it would be super cool if we could get to 100, but I kind of think it's probably not. We shouldn't see 100 as like a blocker. It might be like an aspirational goal.
Yeah. There's too many little like one-line error cases
right, some
things that
weird stuff that might be like really hard to write a good test case for. And the other issue is maybe you could, but it would take like so many mocks that it wouldn't be worth it. You're not testing anything anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, somewhere between 80 and 90 I think would be ideal, but I don't want to set that as like a hard goal yet.
We could maybe even just instead of worry about the percentage for now, just do it based on this list of things we're making. Like just have a list of like these are the important things, and if they're all tested, then that gives us 85, then maybe 85s.
Yeah.
And I'm not super tied to a percentage really either.
That's fair.
More the functionality stuff. I don't want to worry about individual lines. I think I just want to say if ARM cluster is tested well then. All right. I guess we should also.
Yeah, I joined a little bit late because I didn't see the time. Is this percentage something that we have to achieve before start refactoring? Is it?
So what we decided is because we're worried about breaking things when we move all the files around. Is you want to increase the test coverage generally. We were just talking about what the percentage maybe should be that we should aim for. And I think we were sort of saying maybe the percentage itself shouldn't be the goal. It should just be like list out the big items that are not tested yet and make sure all of them have some amount of testing. And then if like say there's like random individual lines all over the place and maybe that's 10% of it isn't tested because of that, then that's fine. As far as the big things you want to have unit tests for. So what we're going to do is in this FDM refactoring pad, I'll just put it in the Google chat in case you don't have it open. Here, inside the phase 1 section, I started a subsection, things that need testing. And the idea is basically if you just like say like ARM clusters, like command ARM clusters on there, that's one of the things that in the coverage report is almost entirely red. We don't have any tests for that at all. So that's one of the big items we want to have some testing for before we move forward. And so the idea was we're just going to go through the coverage report and find things that are sort of like big red blocks or that they're like top level functions you can call the CLI that don't have any testing for it. Like I know like adoption stuff is another big one that like there's nothing for. And we're going to see if we can write some unit tests around those. And then once we've essentially checked off all the items, whatever that percentage is, I said it should, in theory, if we do all the items, be something at least in the 80s. But once we have all the items done anyway, then we're good to start breaking things up because we can be a bit more confident that we can find if things are broken.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. And so the idea behind this other pad was that doing it this way allows us to do it a bit more asynchronously. I don't have to meet up and say like I'm going to work on this one right now. I could just put my name next to whatever thing. Like say I'm going to test. I probably will end up doing the agent stuff. I probably should edit
Yeah.
that in. I
Should
can just
we
like put my name there.
should we
And me
link
just
these
on
two
doing it.
trackers or use like some naming in the trackers, some prefix or?
I think
We
the only
could.
issue with the tracker is it's hard to keep track of, for lack of a better, somewhat unintentional punny thing. It's like if we were to start filing trackers, you have to be like
Or,
on top of the tracker, whereas
or
this is like kind of like at a glance you can see like, oh, John has decided to take the NFS stuff, or Adam is doing the agent
yeah,
class.
or maybe we can use some tag, some special tag for all the tickets related to the refactoring.
There could be some other ways we could do it. I was doing it this way. This is just really lightweight, super easy just to put it in here as long as you have the link to the pad.
Right.
Um, and also we don't. One thing is because we're not backporting any of this, we don't need to worry about tracking that sort of stuff, which I think is one of the things that the tracker is really good for. So I mean, I would be okay with the idea of trackers, but I just think this might be a bit easier on people. As long as you know where this link is, it's just all the things are listed right here. It's just a very like concise way of looking at it.
Okay.
And I think the other thing that's easy about this is it's, as it's immediate. Like I can see, say right after lunch, Mike adds a line and he takes a thing. I can say, oh wow, okay, he's done it already. Like I don't have to worry about like refreshing my web browser, or an email has not come into my inbox and I start to work on the same one. That kind of thing. It's Etherpad's very
Okay. So
immediate.
okay.
If you want to, we could probably have like one top level tracker for the whole. We're adding test coverage, but I don't know.
You can even technically make sub trackers that could all be linked from there, but again, I'm just not sure it's worth the effort to do all that.
Yeah.
Given the group of people, like everyone's here sort of is on the same page of what we're doing, and we all know where to look here, then it could be easier to do it this way. I don't expect some like random contributor to show up and be like, I'm going to add unit testing for some function.
Mhm.
So that was sort of the
Yeah.
idea.
Maybe like having at least one tracker could be useful at some point if we need to know or to link the pull requests to something.
Right.
Yeah, we could have one tracker and they could all mark that they fixed that one, but we could just leave it as sort of in progress state, I guess, until we're happy with the coverage, and then we could mark
Yeah,
it as resolved.
exactly.
Be okay with
Yeah,
that as well. And we could go in like cleanup or
yeah,
something.
yeah. So it's like an intermediate solution of like opting a lot of trackers for everything and having
Yeah.
nothing. So at least we have something to track. These
Yeah,
three.
and in the body you could hyperlink into the Etherpad.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and there's nice things about that as well. This means we can link all the PRs that are relevant too. So you have one spot to look at for all the related cleanup PRs, even if you don't have sub trackers for all of them.
yeah,
I guess that sounds like a good idea. I guess we'll do that too. I'll open one big tracker. I'll paste it in that same spot with the other stuff in the
Good.
things that need testing parts. And then
yeah,
you guys everyone can just link that one tracker for the fixes, and then we'll just make sure to, in the
yeah.
tracker, like comment that that PR is relevant. Maybe just say like this is a PR and this is your testing
Exactly.
this.
Yeah.
And we'll just have
At least to put a comment with the PR.
yeah. So the other pad's good for knowing, I guess, before people post anything, like what they're working on, so you don't overlap. And then at the end, we'll have that tracker there for seeing all the work that was done. I like that. So that sounds good. All right. Well, beyond that, I guess we should also briefly mention the docs pull request that was linked here.
Um, are we going to submit this code that generates the coverage?
There's another in the main Etherpad on September 20th. There's one of the pull requests linked there
Okay.
is a thing from John to update the talks. file to make the coverage report.
Yeah, and so because I don't really want to deal with infrastructure, it's not going to be a thing that the CI does for you and hosts somewhere on a web server. It's just going to be a talk CNV that is not in the ENV list, so it won't get run automatically,
Yeah.
as the comment says. And so you just have to remember to run like talks-e coverage, and then it will plonk down a directory full of HTML files and some JavaScript in your
local setup.
source tree. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
And the only tough thing about it is that you kind of hard to see if you have a bunch of people working on things at the same time, like what the total coverage is with all the changes at once.
Right.
But you always have to sort of keep track of it on the sort of list format where we have all the big items. And once those
Yeah.
are all in, then we can check the reports as each thing gets in and see how that improved it and all that.
All right. For what it's worth, I'm going to mark this PR as ready for review. I filed this as a draft yesterday. I'm not really sure why I made that. So if folks want to review that, and we can probably merge that one later today, and everyone can have the same talk CNV to use.
Yeah.
That could be good. Right. Is there anything else I want to say in terms of the testing coverage part of this? Or do you think we're all on the same page now?
Okay. Not related with the coverage directly, but are we planning to have like more metrics such as the cyclomatic complexity of the functions? Or this is something we would like to do later once we start with the refactoring itself?
I don't. You can
I
go,
think
John.
it's go ahead, Adam.
I was saying you can go. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, I think it's a good idea. I think what we want to do first is to break things up at a file level before we actually unless we find like a major bug. My suggestion would be to not change the code itself. Like if as we're writing coverage, we're like, oh shit, this is like bad, we should fix it right away. We can fix it. But what I would suggest, if it's minor, like a spelling mistake in the exception, or a small logic error, but it's not going to lead to much. We should leave that mostly as is. Do the breaking up of ceph-adm.py first, and then come back in and say, oh, okay. Now that we've broken up, say, the agent into its own file, so the agent class, maybe it makes sense to separate that class into two classes or something, or take one of the functions and break it up into three functions. Should do that after we've separated it from the main code base, because if we make too many changes at once, it becomes hard to understand the history of the code.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Right.
Yeah. Something we can do in the future.
Yeah, I would love more automated quality checks. I know in some of the Go code bases I work in, we have some function length checks. That's basically this function looks too complicated.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, if you spend a few minutes looking at it, you can see places where it's easy to say, break it up. When Adam was sharing a screen and scrolling down, one of these functions, the level of indent was very deep. So that's always, to me, a candidate yelling, hey, I deserve to be refactored a bit.
Yeah. The one other benefit is if you just do something for now that's just testing, then we don't have to run through tautology unit test, which would save a lot of time as well.
Right.
So we really want to just increase the test coverage, and then, at the end, when we do the refactoring, we can start putting things through.
And the other thing is, if we do find a bug and you don't want to make a change while you're writing tests, that's a great opportunity to file a new tracker issue for that bug, and then we can come back in phase. What would it be now?
2, I guess, at that point.
Post phase 2, I guess, would be make various bug fixes.
Yeah. I think we're sort of a similar idea That we want to start with just the sort of the testing, and then once the testing is in, then we'll start going back and fixing things. And then I guess the additional coverage metrics Renato was talking about again, that's something might be easier to do once we've already split things up.
And there's also an item I didn't really capture in that document, which is like deduplication stuff today that's like redundant in Ceph ADM or the manager module, probably go into Python Common, things like the various types and the YAML conversions.
Yeah.
Because I know right now, like I think I saw it was like a couple weeks ago, dashboard team adding, something, and it's like, oh, I've got to add it in two places. Eventually, we want to fix that, but I think that should be done,
in only one place.
Yeah, kind of after the phases in the document.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else to say about the coverage or the immediate plans? Are we all good with this? What we had here, where we're going to just go through and start adding tests for each part.
Yeah. So, do you want to talk about the doc PR and doc? Excuse me, and docs?
Yeah, I was going to briefly bring it up. So this, in conjunction with also the fact that there's currently a Ceph developer, the EMEA one is on October 5th, I think it was. So it's a Wednesday. Yeah. And so we were going to do a small presentation there, or just bring it up, I guess, to say that this is what's going on, in case anyone ever cares. I haven't gotten any messages yet about anything being broken. It's been just over 24 hours, I think, since it got merged. So far, so good.
Yep.
Lots to see.
Is there any appointment in the calendar?
It's on the Ceph community calendar.
Ceph community.
Yeah, it's October 5th. For me, it is 11 a.m. So it would be 5 p.m.
October 5th. Wednesday?
Yeah. Called Ceph Developer Monthly EMEA.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, we wanted to do, or Ernesto basically recommended yesterday that we do a small sort of thing on that there. Just again to keep bringing up to a wider audience. We already did the users list and the CLT call before we merged it, and now maybe bring it up there now that it's actually there and people can play with it a bit more. And then part of that is we wanted to have some amount of documentation on this. Nothing big yet. But just like a basic thing, like this is how you do the compiling, and then like linking from the spot where we tell people right now to just pull from GitHub and saying like this is how you can compile it yourself, and then in the future maybe we'll have like an actual link to download.ceph.com, whatever where it's going to be.
So I shared a link in the today's section for the weekly Etherpad. It's got the part where it tells you how to compile it. Hopefully the instructions are simple enough. They're one very short paragraph. Hopefully the code is bulletproof enough that they don't need a lot of help hand-holding to run the script. And the rest of it is basically, it's in draft and to do, partly because I haven't cleaned it up yet, but even when I do, we don't actually have a download.ceph.com link. So that's something that I did want to discuss today, which is who is the person we should reach out to at least first to kind of get the ball rolling on having a download.ceph.com and the whole signing business.
Do we have already something similar for Ceph? For other binaries or for other packages?
Yeah, so as far as I know, the packages are signed. I think it was Patrick mentioning that in the CLT call a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know more than that. So that is one person we could potentially start with and could redirect us to someone else. But I thought maybe we should start with someone who had more, responsibility for the download, the website. But that's why I'm bringing it up here, because I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure who's the right person, especially now that David Galloway's gone. I would have had him on the list of people to maybe ask
Yeah.
before. Maybe we could ask Dan Nick again. He's the chakra stuff. I think is somewhat connected to this. He might know something. And yeah, maybe Patrick might know something as well. Really, anyone that's super like high up, like Josh Sturgeon or Niha might know something. Um,
Hmm. Yeah,
yeah, with David gone, I'm not. He would have been the one person I would have gone to before, but one of those other people I mentioned, I think, should know something.
maybe it is something we can ask in the engineering weekly meeting next Monday.
Yeah, we
Or
could well, yeah, I'm sure there's some forum we could ask. I could even ask in like the CLT call maybe or something like that again. Because you think all the people who are in charge of big things would be
yeah,
in there, and I think so.
yeah, or bring it in CLT.
Yeah. So there's there'll be a few forums we could go to figure that out. And luckily, there's no huge rush for it because we don't necessarily really need this until there's a release. Right now, again, this is in main
Yep.
branch. It's not meant to be stable. It's if people want to use it, they can compile it themselves. It's not going to be that hard.
Right.
I'm more concerned actually with having some documentation for how to do the compiling, even if it is very basic. And then the download the Decepticon link can come when it's available.
Sure. So,
So
Adam, if you want, I can certainly start breaking that PR up into multiple parts. I just started with the existing documentation, which says, pull it from the Ceph tree, which is obviously incorrect now. So I could preserve the part about the documentation and just add a Sphinx like warning above saying this does not work anymore, and that could be non-draft.
yeah, I'm trying
Yeah,
to think
so let me
of
use the PR. It's in draft, so you can share your high level opinions.
yeah.
That
I'm trying to
goes
think of
for
like how messy can we have the main branch documentation. 'Cause, like in theory, if it's just maybe we could even just say like, yeah, this is a there's no way to do this right now. You have to use this compiler thing or whatever, and just link to
right.
something. It doesn't have to be like some official nice way yet. Um, but that would be fine. Even this link, I was looking briefly at your documentation um, that has like the to do link in. Even that being in main branch, just as a way of saying like you can't do this anymore, is I don't even think would be a huge deal.
Huh.
But yeah, as long as there's something that signals like at least in main you can't do this anymore, this curl, and then use a link to the compile, how to do that. I think that's the important part. There's a few ways I think we could do it, but I think if you're talking about the warning makes sense as well. And really anything that gets the idea across.
Okay. So yeah, over the next day or so, I'll try and clean up that PR and maybe also get some feedback from the doc team on what their opinions are about having something that's known broken in the docs would be.
Yeah, definitely request a review from Anthony. He seems to be pretty good about coming and reviewing things. Right. I think that pretty much covers the compile stuff, idiom stuff you wanted to go over. Does anyone have anything else on that topic that I think we missed so far? Right. That was the only topic I had in the pad. Does anyone have any other topics they want to bring up in here? Nope. All right. In that case, we can end here, and I'll see you all probably sometime later this week. Bye.
Right. See you later. Bye.
Thank you.